So a newer version of PlayStation 5 has been circulating in the market, primarily in Japan and Australia. It's just a screwdriver that they changed. You know, the base on the screw has now been changed from the normal screwdriver that you need a coin or a flat screw to use to open up. This time they replace it with a thumb screw that you can just easily open or close using your thumb. I thought that's the only change, that's the only difference, between the old model and the new one. But apparently, the newer version is actually 300 grams lighter than the old one. Again, that's 300 grams lighter than the old one. We're talking about digital PS5 here, but I've heard it's also applicable in the disc version because apparently a newer disc version is also roaming around Australia. 300 grams lighter as well. The original PS5 digital weighs about 3,828 grams, while the new one weighs about 3,541 grams. There's around 300 difference on this one, and that missing 300 grams is actually from a smaller heatsink assembly on the newer one. Austin Evans, one of our tech YouTubers there, recently opened a new version of this PS5 side by side, next to an older version of the PS5, the original version of the PS5. And from there, you can actually see that the heatsink assembly of the newer PS5 is substantially smaller than the old version, the original one. I'm going to link his video down in the description so you can go ahead and check it out. But here, I just want to talk about the difference of this new PS5. What do you think, guys? You can clearly see here that the heatsink is substantially smaller and almost, they probably cost cut, much on this one, because you will see that there's not much copper plates anymore. It's now on the copper tubes and just aluminum fins, right? The copper plate, the huge copper plates that are being used on the old original PS5 is kind of gone, right? And 300 grams of heatsink is pretty substantial, right? You can definitely feel that. If you hold your PlayStation 5 in your hand, you can definitely feel that. Mine is there. It's of course a little bit heavier, around 3,800 grams, versus the new one, which again, around 3,500 only. But if you come to think about this will actually help Sony ship as many as PlayStation 5 as possible, right? Shipping costs, moving costs, everything will definitely be much more cheaper to them. I think this is strategical for them to be able to produce more PS5 for everyone to enjoy as well. Now you may wonder, how would I know if I'm getting the new or the old PlayStation 5? Of course, if you're in Japan and in Australia right now, you're probably getting the new one. For the model number of the old one, the original one, is actually CFI-1015B. So it's just 10 CF-10. But the new one is CFI-1100B. And then there's a little 01 next to it. So CF-10 is the original version. CF-11 is the reiteration, or the one that has a smaller heat sink on it. Now the fan is a little bit different as well. I think the fan of the newer actually is probably slightly better, in moving air, because you will see the fins are actually complete all the way from the edge and to the center, while the old one is just around edge and then about 10% into the center. I believe they had to do that in order to really move as much as air as possible, because again, the heatsink is pretty minimal, right? Pretty small. Now, what do you think, guys, about this one? Is this a smart move from Sony, from PlayStation? I'm trying to think about this. Typically, if we get like newer version or something, we think that we're getting a better one, right? Like a much better performance, a much better heat dissipation and all. But we cannot deny that most of the time as well for these business practices, right? Newer version means cost cutting. You might think that, oh, on a little box like PlayStation 5, it packs so much power and it's just being sold as $399 for digital, which is tremendously cheap, right? And $499 for the disc. A lot of people are saying it's very cheap, it's a loss. But it's possible that Sony is actually doing it in the first year only. They like, it's okay, we'll probably lose a lot of money, but we'll get those money back from the games, from the PS Plus subscription, right? From the win, right? From the market win versus Xbox and all. And then later down the road, we'll just quietly, right, silently release some of our cheaply built PS5 on the same price. and will definitely be able to get those revenue back, right? So if you'll think about it, it's kind of like a smart business strategy, because initially they will release a much more expensively built, right, device, but then same amount, same cost, and then down the road they will just quietly create this much more cheaper. You know, they can get a lot more money back because they will still sell it in the same price. However, the question remains, or the question is now going to be on the consumer. Are we still going to get the same amount of performance in this one, or same amount of feedback? Because what if your friend has the original PlayStation 5 and then you have the newer one? Will you be able to sleep at night, right? Or will just constantly be thinking about that I should have like gotten that first one because mine is now overheating, and you know, it's cheaply built, but I paid the same amount and all those stuff. Now, talking about thermals, interestingly, Austin actually run a couple of Astro Playbot, right, I believe, and they figure out that at least the heat that the PS5 is emitting from the back of it, right, is much more higher or much more warmer than the original one. So the original PlayStation 5, they monitored about 50, right, Celsius, but on the old one, or the new one, they monitored it's emitting about 55 centigrade or Celsius there. Now you notice that's about 5 degree differences. You might not think it's big, but if you're a PC enthusiast, you're actually like a builder, PC builder, every Celsius counts, right? We're pushing like heatsink fan, bigger, bulkier heatsink, AIO, and a lot of, water cooling in our PCs just to be able to push some, some Celsius on it. So 5 degree hotter, I believe, is substantial for a PS5. But what do you think, guys? For me personally, again, if you're playing, in a longer period of time, like I just got my Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut here, but if I play like a very long time, like 4-6 hours maybe, and it's just producing constant 55, or again, constantly hotter, right, thermals than the original one, what will be the implications on the lifespan of the actual PlayStation in the long run? Now, I think if they replace the IC inside of it as well, I've heard that previously they had about 12 nanometers, and right now they're using around 8 nanometers. Which probably will use less power. If that is true, then it probably makes sense, right? It will draw less heat or less power, produce less heat, and everything, it's just going to be the same. However, again, what Austin tested in his video is that the newer PS5 is actually producing 5 more Celsius, right, hotter. I'm very interested to know what would be the testing of Digital Foundry. I'm very excited. I hope they can get their hands on the newer version of the PS5 and show us some thermals. But what do you think, guys? That's my just quick take on the new PlayStation 5. I think it's a little bit of a downgrade, from the original one. I would have loved them to just release a mini version or slim version of it, even though it will have a smaller heatsink fan and everything smaller. At least it's different, right? It's just about a really new version of a PS5, right? A slim version. But if they're just releasing the same PS5 looks and everything else, but it's much more lighter, and they made the heatsink smaller, a little bit different fan, it will look like it's cost cutting. Actually, people are not dumb. They will realize that it's cost cutting, and I think it will be like another win for Xbox, right? Xbox is out there putting up great Game Pass games. You will notice that Xbox is all over the place right now, right? Unlike the previous Xbox's version, they're now all over the place. A lot of advertisement, a lot of show there, and then they're really pushing their Game Pass really good. And they even have some exclusive box right now. The Halo limited edition Xbox Series X. That is sweet. That is super awesome. So you will realize that Xbox is really doing good, while PlayStation is downgrading, right? I mean, doing some cost cuttings on their PS5. So it's probably going to be a win on the Xbox, but I myself, I'm a PlayStation boy, I just love PlayStation myself. But again, what do you think, guys? Go ahead and comment down below. Do you think, or do you know if there's a newer version of the chip inside this PlayStation, inside this newer PlayStation? Do you think, making a heatsink a little bit smaller is actually better? Like, if Sony has a much more a better idea, right? Or a great idea, grandeur idea on the end of the road here, just go ahead and comment down below. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more PlayStation news in the future. Have a good day, guys.